This meeting is being recorded.
Wow, that's new. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Beautiful Struggle. I am Ajiman Jasante Goodman.
I'm Neka.
I'm Shatima.
And welcome, everybody. Again, this is The Beautiful Struggle, and today we're going to be talking about the wealth gap. We're discussion group 1. There will be 4 discussion groups that will be discussing this topic in total. As far as the organization goes, the Black Advancement Incorporated is a nonprofit organization that seeks to create unity within the Black community through action and dialogue, this being a dialogue portion. When it comes to the different topics and the beautiful struggle as a whole, what we wanted to do was we wanted to come up with a show that focused on things that were solutions-based. So in order to come up with something that's solution-based, we have to have a problem that is very wide and very universal in terms of within the Black community that we wanted to try to tackle. So that's what the organization tries to do, and this is a show that directly impacts that. So from that perspective, I'll go off top with the wealth gap. So doing some of my research as far as why does the wealth gap exist, I'm not gonna try to take everybody's points since I get to go first, yay. So I'll try to keep it as small as possible. I'll do top three things as far as the things that I found. And then I'll throw in some other stuff maybe when we do full group discussion. What the biggest thing, of course, was slavery. I think everybody probably already knows that slavery had a huge impact on Black people as far as being able to gain wealth or attain wealth throughout historically within the United States. Another thing that I'll focus on that I feel like other people might overlook is the New Deal. So Franklin Delano Roosevelt was a very progressive president, probably the most progressive president that we ever had in the United States. However, even with those progressions, it was still 1930, whatever. So he was not doing stuff necessarily for Black people. And a lot of the things that he had tried to pass and implement within the New Deal did not help Black people as much as it should have, or hardly at all, because of the type of occupations that we had, such as sharecropping or domestic work. Because of those things, a lot of the policies that he had were not for Black people. And the third thing that I'll touch on is another thing that I think other people probably already aware of, but it's another one of the biggies for me, and that's the GI Bill, because the GI Bill was something that a lot of white lower income families used to be able to prop themselves up and to go to college and get a greater education, which of course leads to a better job, of course leads to more income and more wealth. So those are the 3 things that I'm going to mention as far as my portion of it, and I will pass it off to Nick.
All right, so I see you come with the historical aspects.
That's right, sister.
Yes. So, the 3 things that I'm going to mention are kind of current day things. So number 1 is education, higher education, the lack thereof, lower rates of college educated folk, which can sometimes limit access to certain higher paying jobs, sometimes jobs that are more stable, things like we've seen in the COVID-19 pandemic, where people can work from home sometimes when they're white collar versus blue collar. Certain industries were impacted, like, people who work in the restaurant industry, working in hospitality, maybe like personal trainers in the gym, things of that nature. Those are things when a pandemic happens, your income is kind of locked up. So, it's education. It's also leading into employment, different choices of employment, as well as unemployment, underemployment. So I think those are huge factors in the wealth gap, and as well as lower marriage rates that Black have. I think that is a big part of wealth building. When you're having 2 incomes in a home, it's going to be easier to pay your bills. Well, it should be, hopefully, depending on the marriage and what's going on.
Don't get personal with me. Why are you doing that?
They should be more readily able to save and hopefully pass down wealth and whatever they've amassed during the marriage to their offspring. So that's my 3. Shatima.
Hello. So I wanted to take the approach with a few things I want to talk about is Black women in the workforce. And a couple of things I want to touch on is how Black women feel like they have to continuously prove that they're worthy of the job, as where white women come in. And I feel like with some of the research that I've done is that white women are automatically on a pedestal with that job. So I wanted to touch on some things with that. Also, education, which I think we're all going to touch on in our topics, but um, mental health when it comes to some of the things with having a job and being able to perform that job and how that affects our mental health. And a lot of times we don't feel like we have the education or the word I want to use is um, the ability to perform at those jobs with our other white counterparts. So I wanted to touch on some of those things. And I think education is probably going to be a big thing tonight as far as between Black men and Black women, and going beyond just a bachelor's degree, going beyond just high school diploma, and reaching far beyond just having the experience in jobs, being able to perform when you have the knowledge, but because you don't have the educational background that a lot of white Americans are afforded more easily, you don't go after those jobs. So those are some of the things that I'll touch on tonight.
Indeed, that's good stuff. So let's open it up to a full group discussion in terms of the wealth gap and how you guys have seen it from your perspective and all that stuff. So when I was doing some of the research that I did, like one of the things that I came across a lot of stuff that killed me, but one of the things that killed me the most was like the median wealth gap actually between white families and Black families, and it was staggering. I actually mentioned this in another roundtable that we had done, but it's worth mentioning again. $171,000 for an average white household median income or median wealth, and $17,600 for Blacks. I mean, like that's just astronomical. That's 10 times as much money. One of the other things that I came across from the Brookings Institute was like for population, like how much Black people actually had per population. So we're like 12%, 13% of the entire population of America, so to speak, like we're 12% or what have you. According to that, we're supposed to have about $12.6 trillion, something like that within our community, right? They said that we only have like like 2 trillion, which that's 2 trillion is not a small amount, but they're basically saying the gap from where we should be, where we are, is $10 trillion. Like that's a huge gap. Like I don't know how to make up that. Well, I have an idea how to make it up, but those are some of the things that I came across where I was just like, oh, this is just, this is just terrible. So from that perspective, what do you guys think in terms of like the wealth gap?
Well, you stole my statistic. I was going to mention that, but my numbers were a little different. These are from 2019. I don't know when your numbers are from for household wealth for white families is 100.
Whenever yours are from or where mine are from. So I got to say it.
So it was 188,000 for white families and 24,000 for Black families. But
we're looking a little better on your number.
Well, I don't know that. Yeah. Well, yeah. They both went up. They both went up. And the other thing that I saw was that home ownership rate for white Americans are 73%, while they're 43% for Black Americans. So I think that is another huge thing when you think about passing down generational wealth. A lot of that comes through home ownership and passing that down to your children. And so we are really, really lacking in that front. So it's not, it's owning homes, it's also amassing like liquid assets with your job and earning potential. We know, like I had mentioned, higher education, there's been numerous studies that show the more college education you have, the more your earning potential, right? If you stop at high school, well, if you don't have a high school degree, you earn less than people who have a high school diploma. And then if you go on to college, you earn more than those two groups that don't have or only have a high school diploma. And so, our lower rates of higher education really affect our earning potential, and therefore how much we can.
Although
add
black women have like the highest rate of like college graduation at this point, right? Something crazy like that, right?
Yeah, we do, but as a whole, but Black men in particular.
We're not gonna do that today. We're not gonna do
Black
that.
men in particular.
We're gonna do that today. I don't know why you calling me out. This is the second time you done called me out, like while we're doing this show. Like, that's not right.
But no, I mean, I don't know if you guys saw it. There was an article this week just speaking about the high unemployment rates for Black men and how it has cost the US economy $50 billion. And however they calculate that, I'm not really sure. They didn't get into all of that. But, there's a lot of issues with unemployment, underemployment, and so many factors, historical factors, all kind of things that come into play there.
Yeah.
And it's a lot. And so, those are some of the things that I think are problematic. Also, like Shatima mentioned, mental health. I think physical health is a big thing too. Sometimes people aren't taking care of their mental and or physical health, which will affect their ability to obtain and keep gainful employment. And so neglecting that can be very problematic. We also know that one of the biggest reasons for bankruptcy is medical bills in this country.
Absolutely.
So, taking care of your health on the front end, like health maintenance, health, preventing some of these devastating diseases is really, really important. A factor that I think we don't always consider and think about too.
That's fair. Tima, what about you?
So I looked at the 2014 report by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and I went back as far as that. But just when I was going to talk about Black women to white women, even in 2014, white women earned $734 weekly, Black women earned $611. And if you even talk about Latino women, they earned $548. So, Black and Latino women earned 83 and 75% respectively of white women's weekly earnings. And it's like, this has been an ongoing occurrence. And I don't see it ending anytime soon. Even if I talk about my profession, I work for,
Don't do it. Don't do it. You know what I'm saying?
And if you think about it, they encourage us not to talk about our earnings. They encourage us not to talk about our salary. Do not discuss it with your peers. And there's no law, there's no rule, there's nothing in there that says you cannot talk about your salary with anyone. But they don't want you to talk about it because they don't want you to know that you're making a significant amount less than someone that you're probably leading, that you're probably a project manager over. And I find that to be like discouraging because you don't have to know, but if you did know, they would have to give you what you're actually worth. And even in my experience, I've always felt like what I'm giving is not being rewarded in a sense of what my salary should be. Because even making six figures, you're still not bringing six figures home.
Absolutely.
Your net income should be six figures. So your growth should be a lot higher so that you're able to buy a home like NECA, spoke about. You're able to buy a car outright instead of having to always finance it. And then you find yourself upside down in your mortgage. But that comes with education, that comes with knowledge, that comes with, maybe starting in high school. I've learned that in some of the research that I read that Black students, their high school counselors are not encouraging them to go to college. They're not encouraging them to, go, get these associates or do a dual enrollment in high school. You can get your associates while you're in high school. You can go to a trade school while you're in high school, but they're not encouraging those things. It also starts in the house. But your job is to counsel these students to get a higher education or counsel them beyond high school. And those jobs are not being done. On paper, it looks good, but it's not happening. And if we go back to, the high schools that we went to, I'm not sure where you're from, NECA, so I'm sorry, but here, our high school counselor did nothing for me. That came from the church that we went to. That came from having those Black women and those Black men on the Board of Education. As a assistant principal. That's where that came from, because we went to church together. We had a personal relationship. But if you look at what's happening as far as being encouraged to go to college, it's not happening. And that they're being discouraged. They're being, made to seem like there are issues in high school. So, I mean, it starts even before then, putting our young men on Ritalin and telling them that they have behavior issues. They do not. They just learn differently. But my mom's a principal, so I have I can talk about it all day.
You touched on like a lot of stuff. Like I want to double back to one thing that you said. One of the first things that you said, and it occurred to me, the idea of women only making like 72% as a whole, and then they don't even break that down usually when they talk about that ratio, right? So you're saying like you guys only make, like, women in general to men in general 72% or something to that effect.
Well, no, that was just Black women to white women.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't even getting to that part first. I was just talking about women in general get screwed already, and then to break it down to where it's Black women. So y'all are getting 72% of 72%. Is that what's going on here?
Yeah.
that's
tough. And then if you start talking about, medical insurance, like you're bringing less home. You start putting medical, dental, and vision and all that other good stuff on there. You want to also contribute to your 401k or your 403b or Roth, like all those different things. So it's like, what are you actually bringing in to be able to build? Because Black people are always trying to catch up.
And that's the other part of it, right? Like that's the other part of like building wealth, like actually understand. Because another thing, you guys have said education from the sense of education itself, but it's also just like financial education, right? Like it's just like the idea of understanding, like, here's how you balance the checkbook, or here's how you balance this. Here's how here's how you should pay your bills on time, or you can call this credit card company, or you can, just the idea of that wealth in terms of wealth of knowledge in itself about wealth is something that seems like it's a kept secret from us. I mean, like, that at least from what I've seen.
Yeah,
and
financial.
Go ahead, Nika.
Financial literacy is really important. When you mentioned the IRA and retirement accounts, that's another thing that a lot of times people aren't aware of. I know myself, when I got my first job in my early 20s, I had that option, and I'm like, for what? Like, I did not I did not contribute. I'm like, I want all my money. Okay. And so after, a couple of years, I was like, okay, after talking to some people, talking to my coworkers, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm a fool because they're matching a certain amount of money. Let me get into that. But I did miss out a few years in the beginning, not really fully understanding what that was, how it was beneficial, and signing up for it.
And that's the thing too. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you. I'm gonna let you go back in. But the relationship between time and money, right?
Yeah.
Like the fact that you didn't know it at 23, and listen, I'm just giving you ages at this point. Just don't get upset with me. So, you didn't know it at 23, right? And then you got it at 28. That's 5 years of compounding that you could have used. You know what I mean? Like that's like 15 years of whatever, you know what I mean? Like of money. So that's a big deal. Like to
absolutely.
Sorry, go back in, Nika. All right.
And I was going to mention also death planning is a huge area where Black people are lacking. I see a lot of times where somebody passes and it's a GoFundMe to bury them, right?
Yeah.
People don't have life insurance. People aren't necessarily leaving things behind to their children. Sometimes they're leaving debt and problems rather than assets and money. And it's really unfortunate. And, I don't know, a lot of times it's not people thinking forward to what could possibly happen, not wanting to just think about death. That's something that people, historically, our people don't want to get into and necessarily plan for, even when they have big money. I mean, look at Prince, Aretha Franklin. These people don't have wills, even when they know that they're dying. It's just, there's just something there where we're not really doing it. And sometimes we need to kind of be reeled in a lot of these financial literacy aspects, saving, having an emergency fund. As a whole, we need to be doing better, because I think sometimes Black people will buy what they want and beg for what they need. And we need to do like a lot of work to kind of reverse the way that is going, because yeah, we're lacking in those areas.
That sounds defeatist, Mecca. I'm not going to allow it. Tina, what were you about to say?
I had to write it down so I didn't forget. You just brought up a great point. Like, you're making all of this money, you're wealthy, you're famous, you're paying all of these people around you, these accountants, your PR, but yet you don't have a will. But you're just dishing out money. You're just dishing out money. So who is behind you that's encouraging you or anyone to have a will, like to plan forward? Like you said, we're not doing that. But there's so many, I get stuck because there's like just so many things that I feel like we're missing in Black culture. Like, even it's just so much. I'll pass the baton. I'll
Well,
land
no, because this is good, because like the reason all of these topics, and I guess I'll just let the cat out of the bag here as far as like what the beautiful struggle does. All of these topics that we discuss, not only are they discussed in different groups, but they're split in half because they're such massive topics, right? Like wealth gap, we can't just talk about it once because there's so much to it, right? Like we came on here all giving our own different ideas of the research that we did. Mine was historical, NECA's was something totally different, and Tima's was something totally different, and it all meshes together. Like that's the thing about it. It's such a massive thing. So I don't feel any way at all in terms of how much stuff has gone into, and to be fair, as far as Black people, there's been a lot of stuff that we have been kept from for a long time. There was a lot of stuff that we did not reap the benefits of for a long time. At least from my research, from the things that I saw and just from living. It's been difficult. Everything from you can take redlining. That's something that's huge, where, you can take something, just housing discrimination in general, where you're not allowed to buy property in a certain place until a certain time. And that's not something that just stopped when they passed laws. People were still doing that to this day. Like, I think, didn't Wells Fargo get in trouble for that? Like when the financial crisis happened, like that was like less than 15.
They were giving higher interest rates to Black. They had to pay that out. I don't know if they ever finished, but
no.
and also lower home appraisals to homes owned by Black families with Black pictures on the wall and things like that.
I just saw an article about that not too long ago, where a Black couple just sued. I don't know if it was their realtor or if it was the appraisal people, but they kept getting a low appraisal on their home when their home was like worth over $1 million, and they were trying to say that it was worth, I don't know, maybe 700. And so they had a white friend, I don't know if it was their neighbor or friend, come in and pose as the homeowners, and like they appraised the home at like $1.2 million. I was like, this still happens. It's ridiculous. It makes you think, like, we bought our home a few years ago, and I'm like, well, is our home really worth what they're saying? Or like, what is going on? Like, now, what they just said is what the new worth of our home is. Like, is it really worth that?
It reminds me of a Dave Chappelle joke when he was like, I've seen this before, Johnson. They go in here and they put up pictures of their own family before they rob them. It's like, that's tough, man. That's tough.
It's insane. It's like, will we ever really catch up? Will we ever really just get what we're worth? Like, it's sad. It's a sad thing. So it does all intertwine, like you said, Aji.
Darn right. So with all that being said, we could talk about this, of course, for hours and hours, but nobody wants to watch that. So let's go ahead and get to the solutions section of this, where we'll go around the panel and see if anybody came up with an idea to try to combat this problem, which is a massive problem, as we said. I'll start with NECA.
Me?
You can pass the mic, it's cool.
I think first of all, there needs to be a lot of education about the financial literacy, teaching people about saving for retirement, death planning. Huge push for people to go into higher education, showing how that increases your earning potential. I'm not saying everybody, people can do fine with skilled trade jobs as well. Entrepreneurship, that's also awesome. But I think that we really need to push for more higher education and moving into some of these white collar professions, because a lot of some of the skilled trade jobs, as we keep going into technology and robotics, a lot of those things are going to be kind of replaced. You don't want to be in in the wrong industry when changes are happening. I think also joining the military is also can be a good option. You know, you can get to school for free if finances are an issue. And they also do help with down payments on homes. So that can really give you a huge boost right there, if that's needed. So I think that the military is helpful in that way. You know, with PTSD and things of that nature, maybe not so much, but you know, people have to balance that out. Also looking at buying property, like maybe, of course, ownership, but also thinking about buying other property to rent out, because property is one of the easiest ways to amass wealth. And so I think sometimes, you know, I think buying a home is something that people always talk about, but also thinking about owning other homes that you could rent out or even Airbnb out or whatever, whatever you will need to do with that property. So I think those are some of my solutions. And then also, you know, Black people as a whole, we really need to have a better push about being healthier, eating healthier, being more active.
Now, NECA, you know that this is a whole nother section that we're supposed to be
I know,
talking about.
but it ties into the wealth gap.
It does. Keep going. I'm sorry. You know what? I was being rude. My mistake.
No.
Go ahead.
I don't want to hijack that section with my talk. You know, I'm
I know that's
I love to talk about health.
I know that's all you.
I'll leave it at that.
Tina, you want me to go next or you want to go next?
I'll go. It doesn't matter.
Fantastic.
I think a couple of the solutions I came in is like, we definitely need a lot more Black educators. We need to get those Black educators in higher positions. We need them, you know, not just there, but like on the Board of Education, as principals, as counselors, as coaches. Like, I think that would encourage our, you know, our students to go a little bit further, because, hey, how did you get here? How did you become a principal? I got 2 masters. I have these different things that, you know, set an example of, you know, how far you can go. But we also have to educate those Black educators too, a little bit further as far as, like, you know, financially, and be able to pass that on to our students because it's being lost. That was one solution. But things like the beautiful struggle, Black advancement. I remember Mr. Goodman did, you know, we were in high school, we might've been high school, your father, and he went through and taught us how to balance a checkbook, what it looks like to, you know, pay off your mortgage in, you know, 15 years as opposed to 30. Like, those things being taught to our middle school students, of course, you know, on a level of, you know, how they learn or where they are. But those things need to be taught. They need to be taught early and not wait until after you get out of college and, you know, you have these credit cards that are coming to you just, you know, expeditiously, in my TI voice. But you need to teach these kids, because I always hear here lately, generational wealth is a common term. But what is it really? What is generational wealth? Like, people say, like, I hear it all the time. Oh, I'm trying to build generational wealth. Well, what are you actually trying to do? What does that look like? What is that struggle? Like, what are you leaving behind, or what are you starting? So, like, it's not just, oh, I'm trying to leave generational wealth, but okay, but what is the process to get there for your children, for those children's children? Like, you know, wealth is health. Like, it starts mentally. Like, are you able to process all of this and leave not just financial wealth, but also, are you leaving mental wealth for your kids too? So those are some of the things that I thought about.
Hold on 1 second. I got a call. Hold on, TJ. I'll call you back. All right. It's TJ. Say hi to everybody.
Hi,
TJ.
So, I'm sorry. Was that the last of yours? Of course it was. All right. Now, good news. I have one solution. That's it. That's the only good news. No, but also to help plug kind of the nonprofit, we do a financial thing. We do have a book that we come out with like every 2 years or so called The Credit Commandments. It's just basic stuff, you know, the whole how to, you know, pay your bills on time, estate planning, you know, get life insurance, you know, don't buy new everything if you don't need new everything. You know, it's basic stuff, but it's really good stuff. You know, if you want to get into stocks, you know, get into it maybe as a group as opposed to just by yourself. You feel like you're a novice at it, right? So with that being said,
Oh, I had one more thing. Sorry
go
to
ahead, man.
interrupt, but Shatima just, when she was talking, she made me think of mentorship, which I hadn't mentioned. And I think that that's super, super important for people who have it together, who have figured out all these things to go back and share with others. And that can be adults mentoring adults. It can be also adults mentoring children or teenagers. I have a teenage mentee and I put her on to everything. I try all the things that I wish I knew at her age. And, you know, she's getting ready to go off to college. I plan on like keeping her on point with everything. So I think that that is super, super impactful, having a personal relationship with somebody who can guide you through certain things.
Absolutely.
Good try, NECA, but you didn't take my solution. So you know what I'm saying? Good try on your part. No, but it was so this one's kind of out there, and I can see that it may not work, but I want to throw it out there to see what people think. Because I mean, you know, when you throw out ideas, other people are smarter than you come up with stuff that can actually make it happen. So I was thinking about having something like you take something, for lack of a better word, I'll generalize and say a housing project, right? Something to that effect. And you have them all pull their money together. Not a lot of money, just a little bit of money, like $5 per household, and have them create a financial group, like a stock group, so that they all buy into the market. And I know that the market is kind of a gamble in itself, but have everybody kind of pull their money together, have them as a group, a financial group, such and such project, whatever, and then have that money every month, have people distribute money into the fund, have them have that money to buy them stocks, have that stock recuperate money over time, and every 10 years, they can break it out and push it to all the residents, and they can either reinvest it into it, or they can take their money and go and then just invest for their project again from the beginning. That's something that I just kind of like thought of, because it was kind of like one of those things where, you know, how can we get a bunch of people out of this stuff, right? Bunch of people. Now, the problem with that, of course, becomes, you know, who do you trust with the money? Is anyone trustworthy with the money? Are you going to get enough participation? You know, there are details that need to be worked out, but that's one of the things that I thought that could be a possible solution. And hopefully people like it. Hopefully people like me. I mean, what do you want to say? Anyway, thank you to everybody for watching The Beautiful Struggle today. I'd like to thank all the guests. Tima, what's up? NECA, what's up? You can also see the Black Advancement more on our YouTube channel or our website, which is www.blackadvancement.com. Until next time, peace and advance.